Vern Kyle here. In this video I've got the camera mounted on the side of my grader, and we are going to be building the berm step by step. As you can see on the left side I have marked pre-graded berm, and on the right side stabilized clay. And the reason that we actually build these berms is they are the foundation for the monowalk. That's the only time you do them is when there's monowalk. And when I typed out all these steps, I ended up with 13 steps, and here's the first 5. And I want to point out that we've already completed a few of the first ones I'm going to go through. Okay. 1. Carefully place 2 or 3 large windrows to each berm area. Now, this can vary a bit depending on how high the berm is. This one's more or less an average height. So I believe I placed a full 2 large windrows out there. Then I roughly smooth the berm out, keeping 2% toward the street in mind. You see, I'll get on those 2 windrows that I placed out there and just knock them down a little bit. And keeping 2% in mind, but I don't really, at this point, I don't really look at my slope meter too much, because the material is so unpacked and your grader is floating around so much, your slope meter wouldn't be very accurate at this point anyway. And the third step, use the pad foot. Hit it twice, once up, once back. I like to do this procedure. I place the dirt in there. I just knock it down, and we run the pad foot over just once up and once back. Then, using the grader, lightly blade the top of the berm just enough to knock the packer tracks off, keeping 2% in mind. So that's basically what I've done now already on this stabilized material. And the grading crew will have checked the top of the berm. Now they will have checked it 3 centimeters high. So they will subtract 3 centimeters from the final grade number. And so now is the time to adjust the top. We'll see how these numbers turn out, and I'll show you some footage now. Okay, we are on the stabilized material. And here is Rob and Jacob. And don't forget, they're checking this berm for 3 high. And I'm just going to take a drive down it with along it with a grader and check out the numbers to see what they're looking like. There is a cut of 5. Here's a cut of 6. Here is a cut of 4. Cut of 5 at the high point. Cut of 4. So this is looking good. This has just turned out just about perfect. Cut of 2. Cut of 5. And see, don't forget, it's only been packed twice. Cut of 4. So this is pretty good. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to knock the packer tracks off the other side, just so that when they go to grade it, it'll be smoother for them. It'll be smoother for them to walk on. And now I believe this side we've already final packed it, possibly. Yes, we've already final packed it. So now on this side, they will be going for the final numbers on grade. like I say, I'm just going to knock these packer tracks off. And now I'll be focusing on my 2%. I'm backing up onto existing right now. That's why it's a little rough there. The existing mono was right behind me. And like I say, when I make this pass, I'm going to, be focusing on this 2% to make it happen. Here we go. We're just going to groom it up. You see there's a white line there? They've marked the edge of the berm so I can keep it nice and straight. And right now I'm not, there's no numbers on this, so all I'm doing is grooming the packer tracks off it. But I'm also adjusting the 2% probably. And I'm probably looking at my slope meter off and on here just to make sure that 2% is happening properly. And here's an approach. At this particular approach, there is going to be a concrete swale right where my blade is right now. The design here is for a concrete swale to run straight through there. So now we're up on top of the berm again, holding the 2% and grooming the packer tracks off. And I'm going to mention that I'm approaching James on the skid steer here, and I'll no doubt mention to him on the radio that I'm coming up behind him here, you see. I'll contact him on the radio and let him know that I'm coming in behind him, just to make sure that he's aware that I'm there and that he doesn't back up, you see. He'll know that I'm there because I've already told him that I'm coming through. And just for a matter of interest, right about here, this berm turns into a straight face. It goes from a rolled berm to a straight face berm, but we'll talk about that later. Now you see the grade crew can come along this berm and they'll give me some final numbers on it. Final grade on it. And you can see the stabilizing crew there up ahead. If you see it closely, they're already working in a bubble back there. Okay, I'll turn around, and when I turn around, I'm going to show you something here because there's the pad foot packer. Now, coincidentally, there's one little area here that I found a fill of 3 on. You see, watch here. I take a look at the numbers on here, and I spot a fill of 3. It's got the circle around it, you see. Now, because we've only packed that berm twice, now it's okay for me to fill on that thing. So I'm going to find a little material out of the center of the road here, and I'll correct that fill of 3. And you see, if we had final packed it, you couldn't really do that. But now that we only packed it once, I can correct that little fill on there. And that's an advantage of doing it in 2 stages like that, packing it in 2 stages. I'll windrow some material right over there, and I'm just going to backblade it into place. And now, hopefully, there'll be cuts all the way down this berm. There was one station there. There was a fill on just one station. And now I'm correcting that by adding a little material to it. There's a cut of 4. I'm just passing a cut of 4. And now I'm just putting this loose material on top of that fill of 3, you see. And behind me again there's a cut. So that fill was only on one station. And now we'll take a cruise down the top of this berm, and I will take these numbers out. There's a little bit of a cut right there. And of course, again, whenever I'm working on these berms, I'm always keeping in mind to keep that 2% happening. Right now I'm putting the fill in, that fill of 3 is going in. And now I'm going to proceed to take out these cuts. There's a cut of 4. And you also have to focus on keeping your edge straight here. They normally mark that quite often, just to make sure you keep that edge nice and straight. This is a good example. You normally have to come fairly close to these valves. You normally have to come very close to them, actually. And here comes a high point. It's marked, and you always keep these high points in mind. There's a cut of 6 at the high point. Cruising along. I'm watching these numbers, and I'm holding on 2%. Now, instead of cutting some of this footage, I'm going to try speeding it up. This is at 4 times normal speed. Cruising along the top of this berm, taking out these numbers. And now there's the existing right there. There's the existing mono. Now when these guys check the top of that berm again, they'll still be checking for 3 high. They'll check the top of that for 3 high still to make sure it is, because see, we haven't final packed it yet. And now I'm just moving my windrow over a little bit. And by this stage, I'm more or less thinking about building the street, you see. I'm keeping the quarter crown in mind right now as I'm taking this windrow over. Don't forget that quarter crown's got to get roughed in at about 6%. So I'm keeping that in mind as I do this. I'll turn around. And now they've given me numbers on top of this other berm, which is, now we're going for final numbers. And Haley is out in front of me, and she's going to give me these numbers just to help me out a little bit. So she's walking in front of the grader, giving me these numbers on top of this berm. Cruising along. I'll be focusing on cutting the number, but I'll also be focusing on holding at 2% at the same time. Now we're passing through this area where the swale is going to go, the concrete swale, up on top of the berm again. Now, I'm going to contact James again on the radio and mention that I'm coming in behind him. I always do that. It's a real good safety thing to do, actually. Okay, I just want to go through these steps, the next 5 steps, 6 through 10, as I typed them out. Number 6, using the grader, I will utilize those grade numbers. Ideally, the numbers are all cuts, but if there are fills, now is the time to correct them on the top of the berm. You see, because we've only packed it twice, or once actually, once up and once down. If you need to add a little bit somewhere on the berm, this is the time to do it before you final pack it. Step number 7, using the pad foot, final pack the top of the berm, usually 6 times, 3 up and 3 back. Step 8, using the grader, lightly blade the top of the berm, just enough to take off the packer tracks, keeping 2% in mind. Step 9. The grade crew will check the top of the berm, but this time using the final numbers. So they are not going 3 high. they are going to final grade. Step 10. Using the grader, exact those numbers and hold on 2% toward the street. This is a good time to confirm the top of the berm is at 2% slope. Okay, we're back up to 4 times speed. I'm just going to do a little voiceover as we're cruising through here. Well, here's those guys are checking the grade to final grade now, and you see Jesse's on the drumming the other berm there because it's complete, ready to draw the notch line. Well, I'm just kind of shaping the center of the road, because don't forget all this material is going to get used to build the quarter crown and the crown. There's Jesse stroking that once or twice with the drum, and Teresa, it looks like, is going to draw the line on it for the notch line. Now, Teresa's going to give me the numbers. Teresa's walking in front of me. She's giving me the numbers. This is the final numbers. So I'll be trying to cut these numbers properly and holding on 2%, of course. This is a good example of a subtractive method. So you basically overbuild this berm just slightly and then just keep trimming it down to grade, you see. Now I still have a little fill on top of this berm in one spot, and I'm just going to put it in. So I'm just doing a little correction there. Now I'll probably have asked Jesse on the radio to pack that. There was a stubborn little fill there that didn't quite go in. Now I've got it in there, and Jesse will pack that a few times, and that berm will be good. We're just smoothing out the center again. And now I believe they are putting the notch line on the other side. Yes, they are measuring out from the hub and putting the notch line on. Haley is doing that. I found a spot to turn around here. Sometimes it's hard to find a spot to turn around, you know. Okay, Haley has put that notch line on, and there we go. And I'm gonna go for the notch. And you see, I already know approximately how deep that notch is supposed to be. There, Dylan is just filling in the lines. Dylan is there just giving me a little more paint. I already know that this notch is about a 16 centimeter notch. So I'm going to be careful not to go too deep. I know the final on that notch is 16 centimeters, so I'm going to try to go just like 10 or 12. You don't really want to get the undercut these notches when you're doing this step, because you see that's where the concrete swale is. Back to cutting, I'm probably looking for about 10 or 12 centimeters here, because I know in the end it's going to have to be 16. And Teresa's probably reminding me that this is where it switches to straight face berm. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the last 3 steps of building these berms. Okay, number 11, using the drum packer, go once up and once back. Now, this is more of an aesthetics thing. If there's any loose crumbs on the berm or something, it'll make it look nicer, and it's a good thing to do. So you do that before you draw the notch line. Number 12. Now, the grade crew can paint the notch line, and the notch line is the inner edge of the berm. Number 13. Before I use the grader to cut the paint line, consult with the grade crew regarding the depth of this notch. It can vary from 10 centimeters to all the way to 30 centimeters, depending on the structure of the street. Keep in mind that when you are cutting this notch line, you are also building the quarter crown, which will need to be roughed in at about 6%. So, like I say, when you're cutting that notch, keep in mind that you're actually creating the quarter crown at the same time. Okay, we're back up to 4 times speed again. Now, you see, when I cut this notch, I'm throwing a few lumps up on top of the berm. So the labor crew will just take a rake and just knock those lumps off. And once you make the next cut while those lumps are gone, then it works out pretty good. So like I say, try not to undercut that first cut. You don't want to go too low on that one. It's hard to repair if you get it too deep. Now here I am just knocking the packer tracks off of this berm, and the grade crew will give me final numbers on it now. I'm just grooming it up so it's just a little nicer for them to walk on. And also, if there's an error somewhere, when you groom it up like this, if there's an error somewhere in the grade, you can see it easier. Cruising along. Now pay attention to how I mount this existing mono walk. I'm careful not to break it. I steer away from the corner and I mount it in the center so that I don't break that existing. I'm careful how I do it. My favorite turnaround spot. See, now they've knocked the lumps off the top of that berm with a rake, and hopefully the street is shaping up pretty good. Jesse's up there with the combi. And you see now Rob is checking that notch, he's putting numbers on there for me. And of course, that's where the boning dots will go. Where Rob is measuring right now, that's where the boning dots will go to bone the road. To create these videos, I am using footage that I shot on the job site last summer. If you find these videos helpful or interesting, please like and subscribe. If you have some input, please leave a comment below.